What's up, everybody? Welcome to Sharpened Perspectives, episode 18. I am Jim Vandeveld of HMC Knives and HMC Manufacturing, and I am joined today by my co-hosts, Ken Spaulding of Zodiac Engineering and Alex Steingraber of SPK Unlimited. What's going on, guys?
What's up?
What up, man?
Not a whole lot. Second time was a charm. We just tried to start recording the episode, and there was a major delay in the recording on their end and not mine, so I started talking well before I was supposed to, but it's working great now. We actually just had about an hour-long conversation off air.
We had an episode
where we discussed a variety of topics that were actually very interesting, and about 10 minutes ago, we were like, man, why didn't we record all that? Which,
let's just talk about it.
We can talk about it. What were we talking about? We were talking about tumbling. We were talking about blasting. We were talking about grinding, machine grinding,
Motor wiring.
Yeah, that was
lights.
Yeah, we talked about a lot of stuff. What a mistake on our part.
Monkey boobs.
We started like 45 minutes ago, dude. For real.
Yeah, what a mistake. But anyways,
All right, so
go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, just to talk about where we were. I was like, I'm having not an issue, but I've noticed that my media for this new tumbler is it's wearing out way too quickly. And I know it's obviously because the tumbler is so powerful and it's spinning so fast and it's just wearing out. But I was saying maybe I should switch to like those porcelain balls, spend a little bit more money up front, switch to the porcelain balls, and then save money over time. And I feel like that might be the move. But
the logic is sound.
But I do want it to like remove some burrs. And I feel like because it's not aggressive, it won't remove as many burrs. It'll just peen the burrs, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't honestly have any experience with the varieties of tumbling media. I've been using the same like triangle cut ceramic media in my rotary tumbler for like 3 years. Yep. And like, I honestly deburr almost everything before it goes into my tumbler, and I'm just using the tumbler to apply a finish. I'm not actually doing any deburring with it, but yeah, that's a rabbit hole I've never really delved into. Like when I like think about people that do like large quantities of parts and what an integral process like tumbling or blasting or polishing, like with different varieties of like buffing wheels and compounds. Like there's such like you can get such into the nitty gritty with that and like application based stuff. Like I've only ever used it for like one purpose, and I don't even know where you would begin like looking to talk to somebody about the pros and cons of different medias or something like tumbling. Is that like something that you feel like you could contact somebody about to like get samples of or anything like that?
There's like two companies that like a lot of people use. Like, so I know MFI, Mass Finishing Industrial, blah, blah. They make those. They're not like this tumbler, not like a disc tumbler, but they're like a tumbler.
They have like a rotary that has like boxes on them, and it like presents you with
it's
like
a high energy tumbler or whatever. A lot of people call them.
So they sell those, and they also sell the media because like I had to like get an account to like get the media, but then I got to call them to like set up terms and shit. But I never called them, so I think I may contact them to see what like a good option is, or if they can like do a sample part or something like that. And then there's like another company, what is it? CM Topline. Yeah. I know that that's where I currently get my stuff from, and I know that they offer tumble samples too. But those are probably two people that I could talk to and get an idea.
You may want to contact the place that you got your actual tumbler from, because C&M Topline makes their own tumblers, and it's a completely different style than yours. Those are the tubs.
Oh, yeah,
so the media is going to wear a lot different than how yours is. So they do offer porcelain media though, but there's no abrasive in it at all. So it's really just going to be for like polishing or burnishing.
Is there any like side?
I mean, it may kind of just beat some of those burrs off, but it's not going to have any type of abrasive in it where it's going to probably put. I mean,
I could just
edge on stuff.
I could not be lazy and just deburr them before I throw them in there, but.
Yeah, but when you're doing like 100 of something at a time, that can get monotonous. I mean, the real plan is to machine deburr everything, right? You know what I mean? Like you have a robot that's doing the work for you anyways, like machine your burrs off, chamfer things, put micro chamfers on shit, like increase your cycle time so that you're tumbling doesn't have to take care of those things. I mean, that's what I do. And just because I hate handwork so much, like with regard to that kind of stuff, deburring and stuff. Because like inherently, like I'll have a deburring tool or like a little ruby stone in like a pin vise or something where I'm like manually doing something and I'll slip and drag the ruby across like a flat surface or some shit like that.
Yeah,
and I'm like, why didn't I just like put a fresh tool and like and machine a 5,000th chamfer on this edge to just
every time I use this carbide knife that I made 20 years ago, I do that shit. I'll be in there real tight little detail and right across the surfacing. It goes like right across the scalloping, and it's not a surface that I can just. I'm not the only one. It's not a surface that I can easily just grain out. It's always on those stupid surfaces. Yep. Yes. That's the issue that I have right now on the datum frames. Is like I finished all the internal stuff on those, and because I only ran a small batch the first time, I didn't program little deburring tool pass around all the little pockets and all that shit, and I plan to tumble them anyways, but. Now that I have 64 frames sitting there with burrs on them, I'm like, fuck, man. Because I don't mind. Up. I enjoy doing some of the hand deburring stuff, but I don't really want to do all of it.
Not 100 sets.
Not that many pieces for sure. So now I'm like, I look back and it sucks because I can't put it back in the machine and do it either.
Yeah, you can't locate them
even
anymore.
Even if I probe it, it's like, the tie moves a little bit once you release it and all that. So
no, for sure.
I don't want to mess with that at all. And I don't want to do a third op, because I could machine the external stuff and then I can reliably put them down into a jaw and then deburr all that stuff, but I have to deburr them before I do the external stuff.
100%. No, yeah, you fucked up for sure.
Sit there. I fucked up on that one. So I'm going to definitely add some little micro deburring in there. Even if it's with like the single flute engraver, because it's tiny. It's only, 10 thou radius or 20 thou radius.
Yeah.
I can get in there really tight with that tiny little single flute and do all the little deburring. Even if it's a 5 thou micro chamfer or something in there, it would be
just take that edge off, man.
Beneficial to just knock those burrs off, or I just tumble them first. But
I chamfer I don't have a single.
All my frames have everything on the frames. Everything's chamfered on the frames. The only thing that's not chamfered is the blade and
the window on your blade.
Yeah, but
please put a chamfer back in there.
But I chamfered that fucker myself.
I need to do it.
But I don't like a heavy chamfer in there because your finger slips off, and
I found 8,000 is like the premium size chamfer for a window. I've done 15, I've done 18, I've done 12, and like depending on how close your window is to the spine and how big the spine chamfer is, like I prefer to go with a bigger chamfer around the profile of my handles. Like of my blades, I cut a 20,000 chamfer around my entire profile. So then inherently the one on the window has to be a little bit smaller, or you're pretty much creating like a knife edge of land between the two chamfers where I forget that I have like alligator fingers, and like literally the tips of every single one of my fingers has like at least a 30,000 thick callus that like, if somebody with soft hands like tried to run that could cut themselves if their finger like slipped on the chamfer at all.
So the thing is like I removed the chamfer and I'm just letting the tumbler put like a chamfer on there, I guess, like it's
3,000 set broken edge.
Yeah, but when I machine these bevels in the machine, it throws material over and it doesn't like knock it off.
Yeah,
and so I deburr it in the tumbler, and it works well. But I'm wondering too if like in the future, if I do end up grinding these, is that going to also throw material in there? Or if there's not going to be any material there, so then it'll just be a moot point. And I can just throw it in the tumbler anyway.
The grinding will still create a burr with certainty.
It's will be sharp as hell for sure.
Sharp as fuck. And it's going to be a lot smaller than what a milled burr is with like a worn tool.
Right.
I don't know. Do grinding wheels, do the cup wheels leave like a halo for the interrupted cut like an end mill does if you're side milling?
Shouldn't.
Okay, I've never really looked at that to see how that works.
Because you're engaging over the whole entire surface. So it's not going to deflect around that wheel like that. Unless it's unless it's a really soft wheel, then it might deflect a little bit.
Yeah,
but I think they're hard enough where it shouldn't.
Spyderco knives, like they come over top of that hole.
You shouldn't get any witness from grinding like that.
That's good.
I mean, you get some of that witness with the end mill. Like I've even had it, even on like my datums on the NCs, there was deflection above the sharpening choil. So right above the sharpening choil, the same spacing as the flutes. and it was the same exact arc as that. And it's because the flute's disengaging at the bottom or all the way up, and then it's engaging up at the top. It was really strange. I see it all the time. If you cut like a side profile, a wall
with like a hole,
and
there's
a cross hole in it. If you got a 5 flute end mill and you'll see it above it, you'll see it translate the same spacing as the flutes. You'll have circles on the sides of the parts. It's wild.
Yeah, I used to do that with with all the cross holes, like for waterline holes and like mold base plates and stuff. When I'd cut the profiles and stuff, you would always see those witnesses. Or if like water lines broke into inside pockets, like into an insert, so you had water that would flow from the outside of the plate into like an insert to cool it. Yeah, you would see those weird witnesses like that. But yeah, I think I forgot about that too, because that's almost like an extra op then for you if you're grinding them, because you almost have to like machine them before you grind them, and then you'd have to set them back up to chamfer that hole after you ground it. Unless the one thing you could do is like preemptively, like before it's ground, you could just, and I do this with like my frames before I contour them, because when I mount them to my fixture, I use the backspacer screws. We lost Ken. Anyways, I use the backspacer screws to mount the frames to a fixture for op 2. So I have to go in there before they're contoured, and I cut the counterbores, and I actually have my window go outside of the chamfer that goes around the top of the counterbore. So it cuts a straight wall, then it cuts the chamfer, then it cuts the counterbore. And so you could do something like that where when the blank is solid, you like preemptively cut the chamfer, and then when you grind it, the chamfer will already be there, finished.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Cut it oversized, and then
you could feed right into it, or you could feed down a wall and then cut the chamfer like 3D where the bevel would be, because obviously your chamfer then is like an ever-changing piece of geometry as it wraps around down the angle that you're grinding at.
Right,
you could kind of process that beforehand, but then I would say your bevels have to be perfect, to make everything match up. But if they weren't perfect, then it would look fucked up no matter what. So I'm sure they will be.
Right.
But yeah, I don't really know what direction I would go with that. Have you had anybody complain about a sharp edge, on your window?
I've had like a couple of people say, "Hey, I wish the chamfer was a little bit more," but I've never had it like an overwhelming complaint. I've had so. I've had a larger complaint of people saying the chamfer's too heavy and my finger slips off, which I'd rather, there be no chamfer and like just have it micro chamfer in the tumbling process.
Okay.
But
that makes sense.
I think I'll have to like call somebody or email somebody and see how abrasive this porcelain is, or if they make a ceramic media that doesn't break down.
Would you think that if you had the smaller media that it would be easier to get into the window to like wrap those edges instead of big shit that can't really get in there?
Right, and that's what I would think too, is like using smaller media. As fast as this thing throws the media, I feel like it would still tumble it out, or at least peen it to the point where it just break off.
Yeah.
There's got to be some, even though it's not abrasive, there's got to be some force in there that is kind of rounding edges, I don't know. That's what my thought process is.
You'd have to test it, and
I just might buy some and just say fuck it, I'll just try it, whatever.
55 gallons of porcelain from C&M Top Line's only like $250.
I'm buying it today.
55 gallons?
Yeah, or 55 pounds. Sorry.
Okay.
55 pounds.
Holy shit.
55 pounds, my bad.
Today and test it. Because another thing too is like, another thing too, and this is my final point of this tumbler, is because the media is breaking down so quickly, it leaves a sludge in there. Like it's literally just silt.
It's fucking nasty.
And I got to clean it out of the drain pipe that comes down, and it's something that I don't want to be I don't want to have to do that all the time. So I think it's just switching to a different media, or maybe plastic media, because plastic media still is pretty abrasive, but I don't think it produces a sludge. And just using that. I think that's the game plan anyway.
Yeah, C&M has 3, 4, 5, and 6 millimeter balls. It's like
So probably get the
270
4mm.
on average, 270 to 290 depending on size. 55 pounds. So
That's not bad.
yeah,
I need 2 boxes.
you got a pretty small. It's a small bucket though on yours, right?
Yeah, that's true. I could probably just get away with 1 box and just test it out.
55 pounds. This is probably pretty dense stuff though, so it might not be that big. But even if you started with 1, it would probably work, and they're fine to test.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, this porcelain media has no abrasive in it. It's used to burnish, pre-polish all materials. It can be used as a second step or used alone, only if burnishing was required. Spheres are well suited for soft metal polishing, where a spherical shape won't ding or nick your parts. I think for what you want, it's probably pretty good, but I haven't tested it personally. I have burnishing media, but it's they're like the wedges.
I'm switching to walnut, crushed walnut.
Fucking takes forever. That doesn't do shit, really.
I'm gonna switch to fat.
I was say, like, guys like us are making knives with hardened steel and titanium. I feel like walnut doesn't do dick.
They got any carbide media?
There you go. I just throw all my broken inserts in my tumbler.
Hell yeah.
Just throw all your broken inserts in there.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That would actually probably work. You know, I was actually just thinking as my computer shut off for whatever reason. I don't know
what happened. But your computer
it's just straight up everything just shut off. Like the power went out, but it's a laptop. It was weird. I don't know why the fuck did that.
Damn,
it's
dude.
fully charged too. And it's plugged in.
You should spend way too much money like me on this premium ass PC that
dude, all these damn Black Friday things. Real quick, while I'm talking about it, I can put these frames back in and just put a Nampower brush in there, run a brush over the top of it, and deburr all that shit.
That's a good idea.
I have all the brushes from them.
I keep on fucking forgetting about that company. Maybe I just do that.
I don't have a tool changer space for a brush.
I definitely do.
I got room. I can make room too, because like half the
every
tools
time
in
you
here are
post
like
a picture
dedicated
of your machine, and I see how empty your tool changer is, I get jealous of all those empty spots. Yeah,
me or Alex? No, mine's full right now. Mine's completely full. I don't have any empty open, or I don't have any open spaces right now. But I have
wish I could see.
I have. It's right there, dude.
You have a potato camera though, so I can't actually see anything.
We're gonna get right back to that, but yeah, it's full right now. But it's all the tools that I need for all the slide shit that I do for every optic cut, and it's all the tools that I need for all of the stuff for knife work, including like hard milling blades. And I have my face mill in here. I can take the face mill out because I almost never use it, and I definitely don't need it for any knife shit. And for the amount of fixture work that I do and stuff for the knife stuff, I could just finish it with an end mill if I need to.
Half-inch end mill. Use a 16th end mill to face your fixtures.
I'm just going to take the fucking brush out, or take the face mill out and put a brush right there. Same size roughly. And I need that shell mill arbor anyways. I have 2 of them that I could use actually the other one, but that's a good idea.
How do you set the offset on that? You just come down and like touch?
Yeah, you just shift it off, and the bristles are stiff enough in Z that they'll trigger whatever it is. It doesn't have to be. They don't have to be precise on that.
How far do you drop Z after?
I usually go about 30 thou. So I'll usually touch off, and then my Z I'll go like, model top minus 30 or whatever. But like for these, because there's so much transition on the frames, I'll probably drop
down in there.
I'll probably drop them like 100.
How
or whatever I need to get all the way down. The ones, they come in 2 different lengths. I think there's like 16 millimeter and then like 22 or whatever. The ones I have are pretty long.
So like 5/8 to 3/4.
What's the lowest
grit? Long. They have.
I want like a 60 grit.
Dude, it's been so long since I looked, but they have the dot style and they have the turbine style that are big bunches. I'll link all that stuff in the show notes or descriptions, but it's Nampower from Brush Research.
I've never used any of the Brush Research stuff. I feel like they reached out to me at one time and like wanted to like do something together. Like
they came to my shop, hit all my stuff.
They came to my shop and did a video. Yeah, you can run them with coolant. I usually do them like about 18 to 200 or to 2000 RPM, somewhere around there, and then feed it like 30 inches a minute.
It works pretty good though.
You can go both ways if you want. Yeah, they work pretty well. Some of them work better than others. Like they have this turbine style.
Can I run it at 10K?
If you want everything to just fan out and only use the nut in the middle of it. But they got 80 to 320, 80, 120, 180, 320. So 80, 120, yeah, 180, 320.
Let's go.
And then they got different diameters and stuff too. I'll grab one right now so you'll see it.
16-inch. Fucking 12-inch brush.
That's a big sumbitch.
It's just annoying because they don't actually put the information on these. Like literally this brush doesn't have a part number. It doesn't have a grit number. Literally there's no information on what this fucking brush is, and I have 4 of them. So I don't know. I just basically feel them. All right, that one's stiffer than the other one, but I mean, they're pretty stiff.
Okay, yeah,
you know.
yeah,
so
ASMR video in the making right there.
Yeah.
So you don't even really have to deburr anything. You run that across.
You can run this right across. The only reason why I don't like using these is they smear flat finishes. So if you have a really nice flat surface on stuff, it smears. It looks like you're just wiping that surface kind of around. So like on aluminum, you can see those swirls.
I drag every flat surface on anything I ever made on a piece of sandpaper, so it don't matter.
One thing I do want to try though, and I've been talking about it for fucking 10 years, is that leave it off and orient the spindle and just drag it back and forth straight and see if it'll do a line grain on the top. So basically run it RPM, run it with some rotation, deburr everything, and then come back in and grain everything. I usually run them, and they roll over your chamfers too. So if you have nice chamfers on stuff, they'll roll the shit out of all your chamfers.
I don't like that.
So maybe I don't
have any chamfers. I don't have any chamfers on the blade. So maybe that's
on your blade, and you can run them right over the top of your hardware too. That was why I originally started using all the ultra low profile heads on the shoulder bolts, so the brushes can run over them easy.
Be underneath the surface.
I'm not going to run them on the frames because I have chamfers on everything. They'll fucking roll those over.
Yeah, I don't need them on the frames. I just need it on the blade to get rid of that little burr. All right, we're gonna do that, and then even after the fact,
I'm not going to do that.
I could put it in a fixture and run it over it.
You can stick them on a magnet or something too, and then just go across.
This is a great conversation, guys. I'm so glad we do this every week.
It is nice when good ideas stem from it. That's for certain. I
always forget the brush, and Ken has brought up the brush to me like several times, even in like our texting conversations. Like just brings up the brush, and I'm just like, yeah, I got to order one of those. And I just never. I'm the idiot that ordered this, expensive tumbler, and I'm like, yeah, this will solve all my problems. But the brush is going to solve the problem, I think.
They have the same abrasive.
Go ahead.
They have the same abrasive bristles too for like buffing wheels. So if you want to do them on a buffer, but they are very abrasive. I prefer the EXL wheels and Scotch-Brite over these. These are more in line with like a wire wheel kind of action. They work really well, but they are abrasive.
Just get the 120, rip off that burr.
They also have small ones too. They're little ceramic in brushes down to 1/2 inch. These are 1/2 inch to 2 inch. And these are actually brushes that I modeled like 10 years ago. I modeled and sent them everything. And we were going to make them at the old shop that I worked at. But whatever.
One of my favorite wheels nice. That I use all the time. Really tight, speaking of the Scotch-Brite wheels and whatever, I have this green wheel from Preferred Abrasives. It's like an 8-inch diameter wheel that's like 1 inch wide. And Matt Christensen turned me on to it. Maybe Ephros and Matt Christensen kind of told me about it at the same time. Like, dude, this is a magic wheel. It's like a green compound imbued, like hard Scotch-Brite wheel. And I use that thing to hit the profiles on all my backspacers, pocket clips. You can take like zircotai or titanium Damascus from like a machine finish, like a 3D, machine contoured finish, to a mirror that you can torch in like literally 10 minutes on this wheel.
Like it doesn't tear. It doesn't tear the tie or anything.
GFP soft, very fine grit.
Preferred Abrasive.
Because I use all the EXL stuff, like Scotch-Brite EXL wheels. The only issue is that if you're hitting flat surfaces on tie, it tears and burns the tie.
This doesn't tear anything. It's remarkable. It runs really hot. Like you have to quench it between passes. But it literally will take like a backspacer if you're profiling around the outside of it with like a chattery, like a machine finish or whatever, like a 2D contour.
Just feed lines.
You can literally just take 2 passes on this green wheel, and it is like a beautiful 600 grit satin finish that is like ready to be done with whatever. It's crazy to me.
I'm gonna pick up one of those.
Nice,
dude. It is like
they make them an 8-inch too.
I think so.
Nice.
Let me see what I have.
How big is the arbor on that?
I think it's 3/4. I had to get an adapter because my like shitty buffer is a 1/2 inch, and I got like an adapter for my shit. They offer. Let me see here. This is I would recommend anybody that does anything with tie, and you have a buffer, I cannot.
Here it is.
I cannot more strongly recommend.
It's one of their convoluted wheels, right? Is that the final polishing wheel or their multi-finishing?
See here.
It's the green final polish, right?
Green final polishing wheel. 6x1x1 is the one that I have.
So that's a 1-inch arbor.
Yeah.
Pretty standard.
It is for like $65 or whatever. It is my most used like finishing tool in the shop. Like it is incredible. Like I'll do my zirconium before I blacken it. I just hit it on that. I do the same thing. I don't even buff zirconium after I do it. I literally hit that finish.
Non-woven wheels,
and it's
fuck, that thing's expensive. Jesus Christ.
Which one?
The 8x1 oh, that's a 4-pack.
Yeah,
it's like I have the 6x1. Jesus Christ.
It's on sale for $58.
6x1x1 is $58. All right, cool.
Yeah,
8 inches would be nice, but
the green final polishing wheels are on sale.
Yeah,
$58. It's down from 84 to 58. Cool.
That
I'll put a link. I'll put a link to that too.
You should.
Yeah.
Like I literally go right from that to torching. Like I used to like, and like, you know, I used to walk through the grits, like hit my contoured surface with a 220, 400, 600. I hated finishing Zircuti and Timascus because then you'd uncover scratches and have to go back through and your scale's getting all deformed and the surface is changing, blah, 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 blah. And I got this thing. It doesn't roll edges, which is weird. Like I can go right over my, pivot collar counterbores or like the counterbores for my backspacer screws like on a frame or like over the lock bar.
It's a soft wheel.
You know, it's fucking hard actually, but it doesn't like wrap because it's hard. It doesn't wrap edges and it doesn't smear chamfers and shit.
Yeah, like a number 9,
that's cool.
A number 9 convolute wheel will just ruin every single sharp edge that you have on the planet.
Yeah. This is not that way. And then I'll hit profiles with it.
Great.
Dude, this thing is
243-20 mix formulation for extremely light finishing.
I can't describe to you how versatile this thing is. Like the amount of it, like it doesn't remove a ton of material. It just like refines the surface.
Yeah.
And like it's one of those things where if you got to have one if you're doing any kind of titanium finishing or zirconium, it's fucking awesome.
Yes.
I'll have to take a video of when I use it the next time. Like just how easy it is. It like, I mean, you saw that auction piece, the one that I had at Makers and the one that I had at CCKS is straight off of that wheel. And like the most amount of time that I took was just blending, because like obviously you have a 1-inch section, 1-inch section, 1-inch section, like over a 3D shape, and then going back through and trying to maintain tangent condition between like the arc of the handle and the diameter of the wheel, making that smooth so that you don't have any visible transitions. But like that's actually very easy with it. It does load up, so I have to take like a used 60 grit belt and just like dress it, you know, like not that frequently. You can see it in the finish when it starts to get loaded up and just expose more green abrasive. And like I've even like rode like chamfered edges, or like I take my pivot collars on in my drill on an arbor, and I just will hit the diameter of them to polish them, and then hit the 40 exactly. And hit the 45, and I haven't created any ruts in it or anything at all. Like that's maintained. Awesome. It's like been really good for me. So
hell yeah,
definitely worth purchasing if you do any kind of titanium soft metal finishing.
That's cool. Yeah, it says specifically it will not alter part geometry and does not require compound, but you can use it in some cases if necessary.
That is,
I actually will have used it on profiles of blades because like it is abrasive enough to like polish hardened steel. It just gets hot really quick, so you like don't want to ruin the temper. You know what I mean? But if you have like little surfaces that like you don't feel like doing by hand, you can just kind of meep. I do it on my lock faces too. Like when I'll like do it on grind it on my lock face grinding jig, take it over to the green wheel, buzz a little radius on both of the sharp edges. And then I usually grind my lock faces at 180 grit, which is pretty abrasive. And then I'll just kiss it quickly up and down on the green wheel to like knock off the high spots to like make my lock release a little bit nicer.
And it doesn't alter it?
No, it doesn't change your lockup at all. It just refines the surface so that it's smooth. And awesome. It's been an awesome tool to have.
I heard Preferred Abrasives was going to have some discount codes or something for.
I almost always get like Labor Day, Memorial Day, Veterans Day, like 20% discounts. You know, they always have discounts for Preferred. So
I like that there's another option to buy convolute wheels from, because the 3M ones are stupid expensive.
Yeah, I don't have any experience with them.
The Haas ones are crap. They're garbage.
Yeah, I don't know. I've not ever used one
China.
before.
Do these guys do? They do 2x72s, right?
Yeah, for sure. I've used a lot of their belts. I'm using combat shit now just because, like, they're the shredder belts. Yeah, they're idiots. But for the money, the shredder, the 50/60 grit and the 120 grit ceramic shredder belts are amazing for $8 or whatever they are. Like, I've ground so much Magna Cut, like high Rockwell stuff with those, and like I can grind a blade. I think I told you this. Ripping from solid, like I'm able to grind a blade. I was grinding blades in like 11 or 12 minutes, like finished from solid, which is like pretty ridiculous, like with a noticeable difference. Now, I also use a fresh belt on every blade. I don't fuck around, like trying to chase like worn abrasives. Like I just don't even. Every blade gets fresh set of belts. Yeah, it's like $25 or whatever, but like to not sit there and fuck around and try and like nurse the grind and like get the scratch pattern you want and shit like that. Like I'd much rather dedicate a set of belts to every blade. Like a fucking $1,000 knife, you can't throw $25 for the belts at it.
Yeah, you know? I heard. Yeah, one time it was back when we were doing it, but it was probably around the time that you came to the shop too. And somebody said, yeah, abrasives are the one tool that you always want to use like they're free. If you try and save money on that shit, you're gonna lose more in the long run.
100%. Sure. And like, listen, I have literally 35 like nearly new 50 grit belts in there, but like there are applications, like I grind my tabs off with them. I don't even bother machining tabs off in the machine at all anymore because one, it's horrible for uncutting tools, and like two, I can literally grind that tab off in like 8 seconds. And I literally can throw a belt, if I'm doing 10 blades, throw a belt on there, track it all the way up, use one 5/32 wide strip to grind a tab, knock it down. I can do 10, I can do 10 tabs with one belt that's like nearly fresh, put no heat into it, and then just pitch that belt. And like I have so many of them that
but now
like,
I do everything in the machine.
Dude,
your tabs are a lot smaller though, Jim. Too. So that helps.
You do have monster tabs.
And your tab gets really skinny past the screw, right?
Yeah. Well, the problem is, but his blade stock is 100,000 instead of 160.
Yeah, it's
so it's like a horse a piece. But yeah, I don't know. If you found a way to machine them off that's not horrible on tooling, I just was having problems like creating the web, cutting with solid on the bottom of the tool, and flipping it over and then doing it on the second side, and like tools just were not lasting that long. Now,
so don't get me wrong. It's not like a finished cut. I slot it down to 20,000s and then break it off, and then I still have to finish it on the belt.
Yeah.
But
I do the same thing. So but like, are you adaptiving it, or are you just slotting it at full depth?
Slotting it with a ball end mill.
Interesting. I never did
10
that.
at a time. 10 thou at a time, and it's all hardened steel, and I leave about 20,000s.
See, I was using a bullnose.
I used a ball on mine just because I had it in there, and that's literally what I finished every single feature on the hard milled datum blades, like the spines, the lock face, the
and on this one ball end mill that I'm using, I'm almost to 100 slots on this.
Okay,
and that's
pretty good efficiency. I was not getting that kind of efficiency. I was blowing corners off my bullnose, like Z-level cutting that way. Yeah.
But I'm also cutting mine on the edge too, so I don't care about the finish quality or the actual size because I'm going to sharpen that edge anyways.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
So for me, it makes it super easy. It's on the edge, but it's the whole entire edge.
Yeah.
So there's like 3-ish inches of cut,
yeah.
But it only ends up being like 30 or 40 thou thick after heat treat. So I roughed them all. Even on this one, I roughed them all with a 1/4-inch end mill.
Just got to get Alex's bevel grinding machine up and running so we don't have to deal with any of this anymore.
Exactly.
Yes. Get these cup wheel going. I got to just order a cup wheel and test it. I also don't want to just coat my whole entire machine with fucking sludge.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I was reading Cody Usler talk about it. You know, he said he has to pretty much clean his machine out like every 20 blades or whatever because of the slurry.
Yeah. I ran G10 in the Fadal one time doing scout stuff, and ever since I did that, I could never clean that machine and get all the black shit off the enclosure no matter what. I tried pressure washer, I tried all that shit, I could never get it off.
So here's the thing about
even doing cup wheel stuff, it's probably going to be even worse.
Exactly. And that whole thing is like, here's the thing is like, they make machines that do all that stuff, but I know we can also do it in the mill. And that's it was a super exciting thing because those machines that grind bevels are insanely priced. But now that I found out that this bevel grinding machine is actually pretty affordable, and if I do get one, then I can, hook up the homies, if you will.
Not only that, but you'll make some money back that way. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if you think about it, is like, you probably have a hard time justifying it by yourself unless you were doing 500 blades a month. But
100%.
If you can keep it running for other guys' stuff and find a price that makes sense, like 25, $30 a blade or whatever.
And I think I can, because all the places around have quantity minimums. I wouldn't do that. Like if you have 20 blades that you want to grind, all right, you got to pay for fixturing and you got to pay for the grinding, but we'll get it set up.
Yeah, that's true. If you just have a flat setup fee, that's like, it's $500 as a setup fee initially, but then you have that fixture made, or even $1,000, you know. But then they could do runs of however many they wanted at a time if they supplied material and spec.
Yeah, I think that's more fair than the whole quantity minimum thing. But my point being is, like,
they got quantity minimums and hardness maximums too, which is gay.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm not going to be doing that because I also requested a CBN wheel to be put into this machine, and they said, yes, we'll accommodate that. And I'm like, sick.
Yeah.
So, but my point being is, like, our machines, even if you run a secondary filtration, like, that shit can still get on the ways. It can still wear your ways down. And that is inherently ruining your machine. With this bevel grinding machine, all of that coolant is being fed down through filtration, but it's also a magnetic type deal from what I've gathered.
That's interesting.
It magnetically pulls all of the material out of the coolant.
So I need to put some big ass magnets on the chute on mine then.
Right.
Even so. No matter what, you just put big magnets in the chute regardless.
Yeah.
It would be a good idea to do that anyways.
Yeah, but you still could get it up under the wave covers and all that other stuff. So
that's why Alfred and the guys at AB and stuff, they do a lot of grinding for carbide in their mills. They've got that trunnion in there, and I think they do PM on that like once a year. They replace literally everything like once a year.
Yeah.
Santiago's calling me. What does he want?
Get him on.
He wants to come on the podcast badly.
Bring him on, dude.
Yeah, I'll have to get another mic set up and another headphone set up, but he would love to come.
He can call in on his phone too.
Yeah, he actually he bought a house, or they're in the process of buying it now, and he has a shop that is the same size as mine. It's like 26 by 40, not 30 by 40. But he is in the process of like figuring out, he has to rip all the drywall out. There's like interior walls he wants to rip out, but like, and then he has to rewire everything, but the structure is good. And so he's like wanting to make like a comeback, like start sharing stuff with guys. And he like wanted to do like a build series around like building his shop, kind of like I did back when I built mine.
That was cool.
Just to kind of get people like fired up for what he's doing, and then like get it like slip back into, the public eye, because he's pretty much been pretty quiet for like 3 years. Like he's made a handful of knives, but for the most part he's been pretty much like radio silent. And
you haven't seen much from him at all.
No, not at all. And what he does make, he doesn't post anything because he's got like mega anxiety about like sharing stuff because it's been so long, and he's just trying to figure out like how to present content and like just step back into it. And so I'll have to get him on. I know he would love to
get him on, and that'll be his opening back into the.
Honestly, I think that would be a cool way to kick off, like bringing other guys in. I do think that there's like would be a demand and a draw for that, where there's a lot of guys that we know that have never done podcasts before. I think we talked about this at the onset of the podcast, which was like, if you think about like the other knife making podcasts or knife collecting podcasts out there, whether it's Knife Nuts or Mark of the Maker or whatever the one with Mareko and Jeff Fader, Knife Talk, I think it's called. Like they're all in such different like places, where Mark of the Maker, their guests are all like top tier, like dudes that have been around forever. And like Knife Nuts, like they're collectors that don't really talk to makers, and then the Knife Talk one with those guys, like they're all forge guys and stuff like that. So it's like, there's not really a platform for like today's like guys that are our buddies, like even any of the guys you would have met at the show, Ken, you know what I mean? Like custom, like handmade or like partially machine made guys, or even CNC guys to kind of come on and talk about it. And like, you know, because a lot of those guys don't share all that much on social either. If you like really look at it, you know, they share work that they're doing.
Most don't do any behind the scenes stuff, and if they do, it's literally parts on a bench, you know, photos and stuff like that. It's not.
They're not sharing stories. They're not like doing.
It's very cryptic. It's very like, yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, so I think it'd be cool. Like if you even think about like if a guy like that does a podcast and he has X amount of people that listen to it, how much more comfortable are those people approaching him at like a show because they've heard that person talk about what they're doing and they can even break the ice that way. Like, oh, hey, I listened to your Sharpened Perspectives podcast. Like that was awesome. Like, and they can like, you know, break the ice with like maybe something that they talked about on there or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think that there'd be a lot of guys that would be amped to kind of come on and just like bullshit about it. And then like
let's set a deadline.
Yeah, we love these deadlines. I didn't do shit with my Fusion deadline yet. I really need to though. Well, honestly, like since I came back from California and I was sick, and
you were sick. You were sick.
You were down for a week, so we'll extend it 1 week.
Oh, then I had like a 1 week. I had a 1 week where I segued back into working, so I really lost 2 weeks.
All right, you got 2 weeks. We'll call it 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks.
Give me till December 15th because I have. I'm starting to do these weekly transient drops. Hopefully next week, but I have like 20
I'm jumping on
sets
that
of frames
too.
And stuff that like I was going to do like 5 a week or whatever for the month of December. So I was going to run these last 20 off the way that I've been doing it. And then while I'm making those in December, make my new fixturing and transition the transient over to 256 and reprogram like my new fixturing and shit in I was even thinking, even if I could just do op 1, you know, like maybe start small. Cause I don't really understand. Most of op 1 is all 2D shit, and then it's all 3D on the other side. I really just need to get into Fusion's cutting sequences and like see what they call things and understand their menus. Like there's a lot of things that I don't even know what they call stuff, you know? And like when I tried to transition to Mastercam last year, when I quit my job and I was working at the new shop for a few weeks before I decided to do this full time. And I actually was like struggling with Mastercam because they called everything was so different, you know, like their approach to like cutting sequences was completely different than what I was used to. And I think it's like an HSM style, like of cam that Creo is not that way. And so, yeah, I remember getting so frustrated, like in the first 2 weeks, like trying, like I knew what I wanted to do, but like I couldn't figure out what shit was called or like how to change, like all the parameters were buried in weird menus and I couldn't change engagement. Just like didn't know, you know what I mean? Like,
well, it's like set up super simple too. So it's set up like 2D, 3D, all that. But like you mentioned earlier, like, hey, did you adaptive out that tab? And I knew exactly what you're talking about because that's what it's called in Fusion. Like it's called 3D adaptive. There's 2D adaptive also.
You call it that, like in Creo, like it's a volume rough with a constant load is the cutting style. And like, it's like there's no, it's literally like, there's like this volume cutting sequence. And then there's like a drop down with like 6 options for how you're going to do it. And that's literally, and it has a weird trick. Like the only reason I knew that what it was, because I had like a class like 6 years ago where it's like, oh, this is like a tricoidal mill. I'm like, okay. But then like to get it to work in Creo, there's all these weird parameters that you have to change that are not defined. You have to menu search through them and it will not generate the path until you've like defined those 6 parameters in a way that makes sense within the space that you want to do it. You can't control the start point. It starts wherever it wants. So you can't have it start like in a hole and like, and then step out from there. Like half the time it starts on a wall and gouges in when it helixes into to that location. You can't make it stay down. It has to jump up and retract to a different defined retract plane. Like as it's stepping over, like you can't have it bump up like 10 thousandths off the floor and just feed over and drop down. And dude, it's so fucked up.
I'm smiling. Smiling because you're gonna be so happy you're gonna be switching to Fusion.
All right, so here, this is what's gonna happen.
Do all of that stuff.
This is what's gonna happen. You got episode 20 is gonna be going through Jim's frame, op 1 for a frame.
Oh, yes. Can we do it on here?
We're gonna We'll do it on here. We'll screen share it. We'll do the whole thing. It's gonna suck to listen to it. You got to watch it. Episode 20. That's 2 more weeks.
Okay.
We're gonna go through Jim's frame. Dude, and if we're not, Jim's just not going to be on the episode.
You're going to be so happy you're switching to
Fusion. He'll be
Fusion.
too busy installing his shit, or he's going to be playing with his 3D printer. Either way.
That's I like
I like 3D adaptive, or 3D adaptive out this pocket with a 1/16 inch end mill for my like lock face / like lock bar insert, and I literally drop down into a 1/8 inch hole and machine that shit right now. It's so
awesome. You can tell it.
Oh yeah,
you can tell it like a preferred start point, or you can tell it if you wanted to go through a pre-drilled hole. So if you know there's a hole there, you can just select pre-drill, and it will know. And then you tell it what hole it is, either off of a point or any type of circle that's in the model.
Oh yeah, dude! It's
and then
sick.
It'll drop down into that point to a specific depth that you want, and then either adaptive out from there. Or
it'll just like spiral and just like adaptive out. It's so awesome.
So I'm actually like really excited right now. Like, we do
so
off one of my handles.
Like you could literally drill holes anywhere you wanted to and just drop down into them and just machine them out.
That's awesome. See, that's what I'll do too. Is like I'll have Creo up over here and we can have Fusion, and then I can say, okay, the first thing I did in this sequence is profile. I cut the profile 2D contour style. Okay, the next one is I do like a Z-level roughing of my lock bar or whatever. And then we can kind of go through sequence by sequence, and you guys can kind of show me where it's at. You can just
match it, and you could do all of it, and then we can just sit back and tell you what to do.
Okay, cool.
And it's pretty straightforward. I mean, and Alex was talking about like 2D versus 3D and stuff like that. 2D stuff, you can still cut 3D toolpaths, and the 3D stuff, you can still do 2D toolpaths if you want. The main difference is that the 2D stuff is not model aware. It's just driven off of like kind of wireframe
corners or
sketches,
whatever. You're selecting trajectories,
and it will gouge models. It doesn't give a shit about any of the 3D geometry. That's
so if you have like
model.
a radius in the bottom of a pocket and you're driving it off of the external pocket dimensions, the tool will cut that radius right out of that bottom corner, right to a sharp corner.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless you use a tool that has the radius that you want.
Correct. But if you're using a 3D one of the 3D toolpaths, now it's model aware, and it will do its best to not gouge or violate the model.
Interesting.
And it's almost always good, depending on your tolerance settings and things.
And the cool thing about the 3D is that if you don't want to be model aware, you can turn that off.
So there's really no point to using the 2D because you can just shut it off in 3D.
The only advantage of 2D is it's a lot cleaner. So like if for you for doing like flat handles, you're probably not going to want to use a 3D because you're not going to, unless you wanted to rough out some shallow surfaces or something that's in there, or pocketing or whatever. A very easy workflow is essentially just like if you're going to hold all of your stuff, say you're going to hold it all in talons, in your vise for op 1. You set all your heights where you want it. You set your clearance. You set your origin to whatever the face is of, the bottom of stock or whatever. Something that's always going to be consistent. You could do it however you want, but just for example here, you could set your Z to that, and then your bottom height could basically be origin plus 70 thou.
Okay.
Or whatever clearance you want above your talons. And then your top height can be stock top or model top or whatever. And then your clearance heights could be, 1 inch above.
Sure.
And then you would run a 3D adaptive on that, and it's going to literally rough out everything it can within those height parameters.
Interesting.
And it'll rough it all out. So you can set a maximum step of like your flute length. So an easy way to do a parameter in there, you just set a parameter of maximum Z step or axial step down max is whatever your tool's flute length is. So if you put a tool in there, you don't have to automatically update the tool path. You have to regenerate it.
Sure.
But you don't have to go back in and tell it, all right, I put a shorter flute length tool in there. I need to make sure that I make that smaller. It's just tied to whatever you have in your tool library.
Gotcha.
And then you can set your fine. So if you don't want to do a bunch of small Z level stuff, you just set your minimum Z step to something really big. Yeah. Something thicker than your stock or whatever. And it's only going to do just a single 2D at the bottom.
Are you able to generate like 3D surfaces with like a cusp height constraint?
Yeah.
So like, okay, I have a pocket with a radius at the bottom. I want to step down 50 thousandths until it hits that radius and then maintain a 3/10 cusp height as it roughs down through that radius to maintain that radius.
For stuff like that, you might want to have separate tool paths if you want to have like a nice clean wall and then do a pocketing tool path.
Go down to the depth of whatever the radius is, and then another secondary path that I'd almost want to have it.
Steep and shallow will actually probably do that really well on its own, but I think that one's part of the manufacturing extensions.
Okay.
But between like a Z level, contour, like you call it, or whatever Creo is, and a like a parallel. That's essentially combining those two, and it's setting with angular boundaries. So anything steeper than this is going to be one. Anything shallower is going to be parallel.
The other one.
Yeah, so you don't get those big waterfall lines on steep stuff. So
yeah, okay,
that'll be
real
straightforward.
Episode 20. So let's see. That is,
Two
what do
more
you say
weeks.
that is? The
we're on 18. So
let me see the. Why won't you show me my calendar?
And if you want to, we can jump on there before, just so I can kind of, or both of us or whatever, we can just show you a little bit. Get you
that'd
familiar,
be probably cool to get it dialed in
with a little bit
to a place where we can then drive it from.
How to bring stuff in, but also at the same time, it would be kind of cool to go through it from dead scratch.
Fuck it, let's go from
anybody
scratch.
Like, dude, I don't even know how to fucking bring a file in or how to model it or whatever. You know, like you could go in Creo, share your whole screen or whatever, export from Creo, bring it in, and we could also go over some of that stuff too, because I know when you export from Creo, it's coming in as separate surfaces, and that was the issue.
Yeah, you know what I think helped? There was a different file type. I can't remember what it was, but Creo was able to export it as and
Parasolid or something.
Maybe a Parasolid, I think.
Those usually come in really clean.
Came in like file. That was the nice thing about Creo, is it could export as anything. Yeah. And then then it worked really well in the transition. Okay, yeah, that'd be sweet if we can
be cool.
Straight up grab us. The problem is I'm not going to go back through and remodel everything in Fusion. Like I am going to bring in solid models for the stuff that I have that exists. It sucks that I won't have the model tree to be able to adjust things, but most of the stuff that I'm making is pretty final. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, you've got all of your profiles, you have all that stuff down. And if you have to modify a hole size or anything, you can easily press pull that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. That's nice.
Or you can just project right on top of that if you wanted.
Yeah.
And
like
now you have
smaller
like locations and all that shit, and then go into the hole wizard and just create a new hole.
Nice.
Or the whole toolpath.
And I'm sure you can remove stuff like, oh, this chamfer needs to be changed. Okay, we're gonna take
you
this.
You could literally just click the chamfer and press delete, and it'll just go away, and it'll be in your tree. So if you want to bring it back, you just go back and
like if you bring in a model that has like a solid body that has no defined parametric modeling at all. And you can just select surfaces and just delete them, and it will.
It's essentially just untrimming the two adjacent surfaces to each other. So as long as you can do that,
can you press pull a chamfer that's on?
Yeah, you
even
can
if it wasn't
the
even if it wasn't created in there, it'll just it'll know what that feature is.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So you can do direct modeling where you turn off your history tree, or your timeline. You turn the timeline off, and then you can do direct modeling where you can literally just grab a whole entire series of holes. So you say you got a chamfer with a hole with a drill point in the bottom of it or whatever, and you want to move it 30 thou to the right, you could literally just grab those surfaces and do move and give it a defined movement, and it'll just move them in space.
Why have I waited like 8 years to do this?
Or if you want to keep that, or if you want to keep that history, you turn your timeline on. So typically when you import like a step file or a Parasolid or something like that, your timeline is automatically turned off, and you're in the direct modeling kind of environment, and then you just turn it on. And then so if you wanted to capture all of that stuff, you just instantly turn it on. And then anything that you're doing to that is going to be in your timeline. You can go back to it, modify it, or whatever. So,
yeah, I was going to say, because like when I was modeling screws and stuff, I just brought in a component, McMaster component for a screw, like a 440, and then I just like manipulated it in Fusion.
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
Yeah,
I've stolen like Torx geometry from McMaster models and shit like that I didn't want to try and model.
That stuff is, yeah,
it's pretty good. I've made a lot of T10 and T15 and T25 stuff directly from solid models from McMaster.
Nice. I have all of the Torx specs too. All the actual specs for Torx stuff if you want it. There's no Torx Plus stuff in there.
Okay.
Well, that's another thing too, is like in Fusion, I don't know if Creo has this, but if you go down to insert, it says insert McMaster car component.
Yeah.
It'll bring up McMaster. It'll bring up McMaster. You put in the part number, it'll bring it up, and then you just bring it right in. Without leaving Fusion.
It ties the part number and everything to the component as well.
Really?
Too.
So then
you'll have
component number. You can almost drive like a bomb off of that and shit.
You can. Yep. So if you create an assembly drawing off that, you'll know how many quantity of you have on all that stuff, and you can create a bomb table in there.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Bomb table. Bill of materials for those that don't know what that means. I forget that sometimes we have acronyms that people don't know what that is. Bill of materials is something that, like in a professional machining setting, like with every job that has an assembly requirement, like the bill of materials will generate like everything that's required to be purchased for that job.
How many screws? Yeah,
part numbers, many, what size, all the part numbers, specs, everything. You know, so if you ever send that job out, you know, another shop is going to require your bill of materials to be able to get everything that you need. It also is nice because then if you know in the assembly what's being used where, and you're checking like clearances or something, like you can look up part numbers and actually get sizes of head diameters and stuff. You never know if you have something weird that is unconventional. So being able to check your models against like what the exact hardware is that people are using is always convenient anyway. So that's really nice. Cool. I'm man. Okay. You're making it hard for me not to make this transition. I would appreciate that sincerely.
It's just getting better and better and better too. And I think it'll be good for you. It'll be a good kind of refresher for me also. Cause I feel like every time I show somebody something, I'm like, I'm still learning shit too as I'm teaching somebody. Cause they're like, you're going to ask questions on stuff that I may have never done, which is highly likely because I still don't, even though I've been on Fusion since like 2014 or whatever it was, I feel like I don't know shit in there. Like I'll be talking to guys that actually really know this software.
Yeah.
And I'll ask questions about very basic stuff. Sometimes I'm like, why the hell doesn't this do this?
I'm like, it does.
You just gotta go here and click that.
But you got to think about it. Like we use stuff for like a very specific set of tasks. And you don't need to know a lot of those things. Like you utilize it for what you need to utilize it for. And there are guys that their job is just to understand the application side of the software so that they know everything about it, and like,
of course,
you can better dedicate that brain power to like things that are within the niche of your process versus just like being a Fusion know-it-all, Right. And then also the nice thing about that is when you do figure out those things that you always wondered if it had, you like immediately understand how gratifying that changes, and if that's just something that like you always had, like I love solving problems that like I had some ornate workaround for that have another problem, a fix that's just like built in. You're like, you feel like a dumbass, but then it's also like, I have that like that moment of clarity where it's like, I love this and I'm never going to forget that it exists.
Well, that was like,
I was
going to say what brought it up was kind of what Alex and I had been talking about previously about forcing a tool change. So if you're doing a pattern of stuff and you want to force a tool change so that your program is outputting the tool number, the tool change, the work offset, the RPM, the
G43,
the length offset, G43 and all that stuff. If you're patterning something, it only does it at the top.
Right.
And then every pattern doesn't have it.
Right.
But you can do, so I hit up a couple buddies about it and I'm like, hey, I want to add a force tool change option in the option parameter or in the operation parameters. So you can go in your post, you have to have machine configuration and stuff set up. So it's actually going through the post. And then you basically link a post to your file or to your setup. And then it goes through the post and it finds out any operation properties and stuff that you have in there. So, but anyways, I was talking about that. I'm like, how, would it be easy to do this? And like, oh, it's already in manual NC. You just go into manual NC and then select force tool change, put it before that toolpath. And then as it's going through the post, it knows I need to force a tool change here. So
dude, you didn't tell me this. What the fuck?
So the reason why I would do it is like, if I'm cutting soft jaws, I'll rough everything out with one tool. I might finish the walls and the floor with the same tool and then chamfer the top. So what my normal workflow would be rough everything out, chamfer the top, and then run the finish toolpath.
So it is right there. Holy cows.
So if I need to open up the wall size, I don't have to run all the way through the roughing or all that shit. I don't have to turn on the SMT return like on a Speedio or turn on setting 36 on the Haas because it reads through all the code and all that shit. It takes a long time sometimes. There's been programs that I've gone through that are over a minute just searching through the program to get to the line that I'm already telling it to start at.
Yeah,
because it needs to check for all the codes and everything before.
See, that's so funny because like instead of doing that, I would just repost that individual sequence and then just have it separate and just run the wall finishing.
Well, you could do that too. And those are all things that I've done over the years. But in this kind of case, you could just rough and then you could do force tool change and then finish and then do your chamfer at the end. I mean, you might want to still finish after you do your chamfer so that you don't have to deal with any burrs trying to fit your part in it.
Right.
But just for example, that's already in there as something. It would be cleaner, I think, if you could tie it into the toolpath rather than adding a manual NC pass-through into your toolpath tree. But the nice thing in having it outside of your toolpath is you can actually see that it's there at a quick glance without having to edit a toolpath and see.
Yeah,
open
that's
it
very
up,
cool.
And then see if it's already checked or not. But
it's one of those things, though.
That
you
kind of
didn't know
stuff
it
is already in
existed.
there. There's so much shit in there. It's like there's people that are building Fusion that actually know what they're doing.
Yeah,
dude.
So
it legit does. Holy cows.
Yeah, and the cam team is like, it's nice because they're all dudes who have worked in shops. They're all guys that have machines. Like these dudes obviously live and breathe this stuff. It's not a bunch of just software engineers that are like, they don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah, do it without
it's
that
nice.
Okay.
But yeah, so that'll work. But there's also another one too in the Haas post, which is not available currently, but it's something that I've been working on with Ed about doing safe start all operations. So every single operation you have in there, it'll output that code at every single operation you have, including patterns, but it block skips all of the secondary ones. Okay. So if you don't want to send it home every single time, because it's going to send it home at the beginning and end if you don't have it on, it does a block skip.
So it's going to have it there, but it will skip it.
Something really quick.
So if you have block skip on, it just skips past it, so it doesn't send it home every single time you're doing a pattern.
But then you can still run through and search. Exactly. And you can have the ability to go between them all, but you don't have to worry about it returning home and then just running the next, reading that line.
And it doesn't have to search through the whole program, take all that time. You literally just jump to where you want, make sure block skips on or off, and then run from where you want. So
nice.
It's cool. There's a lot of really handy stuff in there.
Why didn't you tell me this?
I did.
Literally, you told me that it was an NC pass-through.
Yeah, but you were too busy looking at gold chains.
Oh, I was.
You were distracted.
Guido and you.
But
dreaming about
the
dream.
All right, so it's there.
Two things really quick. So, first of all, it also adds in the work coordinate system, which is awesome.
It does it all. It makes it a safe. It makes it literally a safe.
Yeah,
it like does it's its own new toolpath. Yep.
It
does everything as if it's its own new toolpath.
So,
and it'll spit out an end block too, so you can jump to that. You can jump to that end block on yours.
Yeah.
You can search
by
what
end block it is.
So the way that it's defaulted, the way that the stock post does it, it's like it starts at 5 and it goes by every 5 or whatever. I have mine modified to match my end block to my tool number.
Me too.
So you just jump to tool number on there. You basically, on the Haas, you can just search. You can go straight to like T18 if I want to run my chamfer tool.
I have it
because I'm outputting end blocks. I just go N18 down search and it'll jump to my chamfer tool.
I just go 1 through 5, like in sequential order.
So you can set it sequential order, and you can
so just 1 through 20 for however many.
I don't have the option on the
if you want.
Studio post doesn't have the option to do it on tool change, which I wish it did.
I'm sure the new post does. You should be able to, but you can always just edit that post real easy.
I'm using the old post, like the normal one from Fusion.
Dude, download the one. Yeah,
I gotta get the one from Goose. I gotta get the one from
his
Goose
right now. Go on his GitHub and do it. Speaking of GitHub too, I added a bunch of my Haas tool breakage detection stuff into my GitHub, and it's linked on my website under the resources tab. I need to add the brother stuff that I worked on too. But that's something that I'm working on. Yep.
All right, so my second question. So like, let's say it's on tool 3, it runs its little chamfer, and then it's going to go to the next chamfer, and then I put in this. It has, the force tool change. Is the brother going to ignore that force tool change, even though it already has the tool in the spindle?
It will send it. It should send it home. It's probably going to. So it's going to send it home and then come back down.
It'll retract to a safe position and then go back down.
It's going to go home. It's going to send it all the way back to the tool change position, as if it's doing a tool change to itself.
Right. Yeah, but it's not going. But it's not going to tool change back out into the same tool.
No, it won't come off the taper and come back down. It's just going to go up and come right back down.
Okay. It's kind of like your tool breakage.
The breakage.
Like it goes
exactly.
Up,
it's just going to
over and then down. Okay.
Yeah. It's not. It won't even move anywhere unless it needs to in X, Y. But it's going to send it home. So like if you needed it to be after every single toolpath in there, you have to actually put it
right.
Force tool change on every one. So implementing that safe start all operations option, which is on the Haas post, if you implement that into the brother post, which is something that I'm trying to get Ed to do, I got to basically convince him that it's a good reason to do it. He's always thinking of, all right, well, can we do it another way? Can we do it something that's more efficient for people that they may not forget, or something that's more safe, which is awesome.
Just have it a checkbox.
Thinking like that. But I'm like, I just want to fucking add this functionality. Please just add this functionality in there and it will solve a lot of problems. He's like, but is there a better way? I'm like, there might be, but I know that this works. Please just do it for me.
These computer guys.
Shit, And but he's been very, very helpful. Very smart guy. I spent hours, literally multiple hours on the phone with him the first time I ever talked to him. And we were going through all this shit. He was helping me with networking stuff here. He was just like, he obviously loves this kind of stuff like as much as we love what we're doing, which is really cool. But the safe start all operations basically makes it to where you don't have to do the manual NC pass through, or it's the manual NC force tool change. It's not the pass through, but the force tool change. Mm-hmm. It automatically will safe start all of the operations, and anything aside from the very first time you call that tool in that bunch. So like if you're using the chamfer tool for 10 different tool paths, it's going to hard code all that stuff for all of them. But everyone after the first one is going to have block skips on it. for the stuff that's not absolutely necessary if you're just running through without any interruption. So you can turn block skip off or turn block skip on, and it just jumps right past all that stuff. So it won't send it home every time you do a pattern. It won't send it home every single tool path. It won't call up the work offset again. It won't call up the RPM again. It just jumps past it.
But it'll be in there.
But it'll be there. It'll be there. And all you have to do in order to read it is jump to that end block, make sure block skip is off, and then it will read the whole line after the block skip.
Gotcha.
So it'll force a tool change. It'll force the RPM. It'll force work offset, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of annoying that
it adds a lot of code to it, which is fine because I think most people now don't actually give a shit about what their code looks like.
Yeah, I don't.
Nobody's running Cobras anymore where they have finite amounts of memory.
Yeah. I feel like I'm very particular or picky about the code format and how things actually read, but I don't care too much. I'm not going into my code. Very rarely am I going into my code and modifying shit anymore at the control. I mean, with it being literally this close, there's no reason anymore. Plus, I want to have that traceability within the cam anyways. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's all like old legacy shit that I might be modifying like that. But
dude, I'm so pumped about this pass-through thing.
Yeah, it's not technically the pass-through, but it is in manual NC. It's manual NC force tool change. And then pass-through is if you wanted to pass any type of comment or code into the program anywhere you want.
Why wouldn't they just add that option to the post and a click box? It's a click box. Like, do you want to export?
That's what Safe Start All Operations is. It's literally a checkbox in the post processor.
Just want that.
So once you post and you have all your stuff, you set your program number and your program names and all that shit in there, and you have all your options in there. You can select one of the checkboxes that's Safe Start All Operations.
I wish I would have looked through that.
And it
just
works
saved
like that.
So many crashes for me. Well, 2.
2 is a lot.
Tool setter and a brand new tool.
No,
Luckily,
I feel like I've been machining for like 30 years. After you do your first crash, you're like, yep.
All right, I got that one under the belt. I remember the very first crash that I ever had. It was at the first shop that I worked at, and of course, it was on a fucking rotary. It was on a nice long part on a fixture with a tailstock in it, and tool blew up. Whatever. So I swapped the tool out, and the guy's like, "Let me know before you start running." And I'm like, "Whatever." I set the tool offset. I check it. It's all good. I jump back to the beginning of the program and I start running. The problem is that the way that they posted out their code is they didn't tell it to do a tool change at the beginning of the tool path. They had the tool path. They had the tool change for that tool path at the end of the previous one. Just fucking retarded. So stupid. So it literally just ran the wrong tool on that tool path, and it smashed that tool right through the part. I have it here still. It's actually literally sitting in that toolbox right there. It was a tube for like a dentist tool, and it smashed through it. The holder went through it, and I'm looking in the window like, what the fuck? There's not supposed to be sparks. There's, this ring of red, just, and lava coming out of it, and it broke the fixture. It broke the tailstock. Literally everything from the collet face to the taper on the tailstock just broke in half.
That's what my nightmare's made out of.
So like, the guy came over.
No more crashes.
I got you, dude.
Oh my God.
Don't worry about it. I'll fix all this shit. Just go run my machine. And I was like, all right. So ever since then, I'm like, yeah. I've had a couple bumps. I had one on Mastercam when I first started using that. I was patterning parts. And for whatever reason, when they pattern parts in there, it doesn't keep the same work offset. It just throws a new work offset for the pattern parts. And there's a checkbox in there that's buried, which I found out after the fact. And so it's running 2 parts. And of course, G54 was set to the center of it was on a UMC, set to the center of the table at the locating face of the pallets. Not the greatest fucking way to set up your work offsets.
What the fuck?
And it wasn't shit that I had set up. So of course the tool just tries to go to that fucking work offset. So it just tried to go through the vise, through all the work holding, through the pallets.
So it tried to go to hell, basically. It was like,
tried to send it straight to hell. Yeah. And that was a dumb one. And then another one is that pause shortcuts a little bit. If it's moving in X and then down in Z, it'll shortcut a little bit. I bumped the holder. I bumped a little holder doing that. So welded the fucking holder to the part. That was cool.
Yeah, that was like one of the first things I did. Well, the second thing I did on the Speedo was turn off the dogleg rapids, because there's so many
shit right off
stories of guys being like, oh yeah, this was on, and Fusion, you can't tell it in Fusion because it doesn't know about dog legs. It's pretty linear. Yeah. And like, they're like, yeah, we had a lot of X and Y crashes. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. Fucking parameter, turn that shit right off.
Yeah, parameter 172. It's a user parameter 172. Set it to 2.
The people that like set their work offsets to like the point of rotation of their fucking 5-axis machines underneath all of their stuff. Hey, you got big cojones, because
you got to be confident in you have to be very confident in your workflow for sure. Yeah, Rob Lockwood actually has a really good video about that. It was one of his Autodesk University classes that he did, and it was really cool because you can build all of your work holding and everything in Fusion, and then everything at the machine just stays the same. You tell them, all right, I want this palette with this work holding on it with these jaws or whatever, and it's all built in. And that's for guys that don't give a shit about code or what their Z's look like or anything like that.
Right.
If you're trying to build like a really robust system that's always on, especially something like a 5-axis where you have a common place that you're putting all of your work holding. If you got a 0-point system or something on the table, setting your work offset there, then you don't have to set your work offset every single time you set up a job, which is nice. But if you've got probing in a machine and you're doing all dynamic work offsets and all that shit, like you don't want any of that stuff because it's not going to follow around where your part is. It kind of sucks for second op stuff. It's good for doing like first op stuff where you're tabbing a part off and it's done. But if you're doing like second op stuff where the second op has to be tight to the first op, it's obviously not ideal because you're going to want to have a work offset on your part.
Yeah, I thought about setting up all of like my work offsets off of the actual bore where the pins go for the 5th axis stuff, and then all of my Z heights just retouch those off as I'm like machining stuff.
So your XY's there, but your Z's going to change every time?
Yeah. Well, I feel like it will because all of my
if you don't make them consistent,
all of my fixturing is not perfect. It's not perfect at all.
Yeah. You could use a common work offset though, and you can have a probing cycle in your toolpath, and you can overwrite, or you can write to another work offset if you want. So you can have the probe come up to a known location off of your origin or off of your fixed position. And then you can have a second work offset being set that all your toolpaths are running off of. So you can basically,
that's a good point.
Your machine will know, like Cam will know where all your stuff is because you're working off of that fixed work offset. And then you could fine tune with another work offset if you want with the probe.
Gotcha.
So you don't have to be exactly the same on all your stuff, but you're still going to go to roughly the same point to do your initial probing and then set a new work offset for everything you're actually cutting.
Right.
There's a lot of ways. There's 1,000 ways to do it. So,
well, admittedly, I haven't been paying attention for the last 5 minutes, but I'm back.
That's all right. Probing stuff, fusion
Somehow
stuff.
we crested it into an hour and 15 minutes again, even though we talked for 45 minutes before we started this. All I know is
I keep
that
looking
means
at
that
mine
my
and it's like
machines have been
59
down
minutes.
You're at 59 minutes? I'm at an hour.
Because my computer turned off earlier.
You're probably going to have to splice all this together now.
Well, the nice thing about Riverside is that it'll come in as 2 separate recordings, but the timestamps are all still active. So it'll just put it right. It puts it right where it needs to be.
So it's like a parametric recording.
Yeah, dude, it's tight. Riverside's cool. They're adding a lot of new functions too. We were talking about some of the plan upgrade stuff too. And if we upgrade to the Pro plan, you get more hours available for exporting, which I don't think we need right now. But one thing that they're actually releasing, I think it's already out in beta now, in the Pro plans, is that it automatically goes through your episode because it does like magic clips, which will be like one or 2 minute sections of it that the AI thinks is like an exciting part of the episode for doing like stories or shorts and shit like that. But because it's also creating a transcript for the whole entire episode, it figures out kind of where your topic is changing and gives you chapters. So it'll give you chapters. It'll do show notes. It literally will output all that.
That's sick.
So that'll save a lot of
segue. If you are listening to the podcast or know somebody that listens to the podcast and you don't know how to support us, well, we have a Patreon, and that link is right down there. It's in the description somewhere.
So this is actually before we wrap this up. Actually, we were talking about this beforehand, but I am planning to do a Patreon only lotto for a Transient 3.2
exclusive
subliner exclusive. So
exclusivity.
I'm actually going to do 2. I'm going to do a giveaway that's going to be for my email list. So sign up for my email list. The link is in my bio on Instagram. And I'm also going to do, like I said, a Patreon only lotto, which we have a pretty low number of patrons right now. So if you want to avoid a 1 in 2 or 3 or 400 chance for for the lotto and you want to probably be a 1 in 50 or 1 in 100 type of situation to get a transient, make sure and sign up for our Patreon, link in the description below. I think that the minimum, what's the minimum pledge amount? $5 a month or whatever.
$5. There's only one tier.
It's only $5.
So there's 2 tiers. There's a free one, which really we're not currently using for anything. And then there's a paid one. It's $5 a month. And we've talked about it a little bit, but that's kind of where we want to try and direct some of the questions, like listener questions that we can talk about on episodes. So I have a couple posts that I made in there, and one of them is literally just about listener questions.
Sure.
Easiest way is because there's already guys that are supporting us in there. Just go in the comments on there and just write your questions in the comments if you want. You'll be able to see previous questions. So if something that's already been asked or whatever, but feel free to ask as many as you want, as often as you want, and we'll just do our best to get to what we can.
Yeah, we're going to transition to utilizing Patreon just because, like every podcast says, but most listeners don't understand, there are a decent amount of costs associated with hosting and, the stuff that goes into getting this stuff out there. Even as much like we were talking earlier in this episode, wanting to get additional guests on here. These microphones are a couple $100 a piece. Headsets are $100 a piece. Sending them around the country and stuff like that, like it gets expensive. So we're trying to kind of, forecast what the infrastructure is going to look like to be able to do that. And so anything that we can have coming in, even if it's $100 a month or $50 a month, goes a long way in covering some of those costs. So yeah, there will be for sure. And actually we talked about this. I'm going to hit a little spoiler alert. The other guys are also going to be doing some Patreon only lottery stuff. We just really want to find a way. I think that everybody's here. If you're not here for like the idiosyncrasies and the intrinsic value of the manufacturing and machining side of making knives, if you're just a collector, we want to be able to offer you value. And if that means you're going to get the opportunity to purchase knives at a higher rate of efficiency, like I think that is probably something that most people can agree that they'd be pretty stoked on. So, sign up for the Patreon. Hit us up with messages and let us know that you subbed. We'll definitely love to thank you personally that way.
We'll start throwing some stuff up too for the guys that aren't in.
And if you guys own a business or know somebody that owns a business and you want to be a sponsor, hit us up.
Prefer to abrasives, hit us up.
Prefer to abrasives,
Brush research.
Fifth Axis, hit us up. Liquid Everybody, Death, hit us up.
Orange
Liquid Death.
Never mind.
No, not that. No.
No, they're out of business.
Not them.
I gotta get my soft jaws before they close up entirely.
Yeah, just model yours and make your own.
No, I don't like doing the dovetail cutting. I don't have
I'm
room
still
in my tool
waiting on
changer
a
for
pair of
those kind of
soft
tools.
jaws from them. I ordered 8 months ago.
Good luck.
Well, now that Chris doesn't work there anymore, good luck getting a hold of anybody to get your shit.
AI.
Anyhow. All right, guys. Well, I got to get back to work. It's been 2 hours since the spindles have been running. I got shit to do. So
I got shit to do too. I'm making pocket clips now. That's where we didn't talk about where we're at. I'm making pocket clips today. I got all my internal shit done, and I'm just gonna keep going.
Nice, man. Yeah, I'm running Mac stuff for December in the VF2, and I am running some custom stuff in the Super Mini Mill just for some of these last builds that I'm wrapping up. I ordered a bunch of titanium for a couple of projects today. I'm about to make a big hardware order, just handling some kind of like logistic stuff. I paid a bunch of bills, and now I'm broke again. Nice. That kind of fun stuff. But
I know that world.
And Alex is finishing up. He took a Lamia. That was a pre-order that you did last week, or was that? I wasn't really paying attention.
That's a pre-order. Basically, pretty much all the stuff is done except for the obtuse, which is the outsides of the scales, and then the machined bevels. So I'm not working on the bevels today because I'm waiting on a Mari tool order of tooling. But I went through the code, or I guess the setup tree of the obtuse stuff, and just refined all my speeds and feeds so I can go way faster with all that stuff. And I got it down to total machine time is roughly an hour and 20 minutes.
For how many pieces?
4. So it's it's 8 pieces. So it's like 4
Op 1,
and then 4. No, just op 2. So I got it down to that. So like a lot of the time that was taken up was from the parallel tool paths and the contour tool paths to get like the actual shape of it, and that was babying the ball end mill. So I just jacked up I just jacked up the RPMs and the feeds, and I'm gonna send it on that.
Multiply all times 4 and hit go.
There you go. I need to do the same. Yeah, mine are an hour for one external.
So the contours are at almost 100 inches a minute, and then the parallel little scalping that it does is actually like 150 inches a minute. So
I'm old school. I'd rather feed slower and take a bigger cut.
We'll be cranking.
Anyhow, well, cool.
For now, wait till 2 more weeks.
Yeah, wait till 2 more weeks and we revamp everything.
All right, cool.
Well, cool, guys. Yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in. We look forward to talking with you next week. Enjoy your segue back into post-Thanksgiving workflow this week. I know I am personally struggling, and I'm sure a lot of you are. But good luck with that.
I didn't even take a day off.
You actually didn't even work? You haven't worked at all?
My kids' birthdays were on Saturday, and I had the machine running the whole fucking time. Yep. And literally, I was running parts all day long, and all the dads were coming in. What's up in here? This is fucking cool. I'm like, this is what I'm doing.
Ken's cool. The rad dad.
Yeah, try.
All right. Well, guys, have you a good week, and I'll catch up with you later.
You too, man.
All right, dude. Later.
See ya.
See ya.